Hi, everyone. I am Kelly Birmingham. I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I am a content creator with the September 26 project. The September 26 project is a movement. Our tagline is 365, 10 minutes every 365 days a year will save a life. It was developed by the surviving sister Maysoon of Feta and Mu, who died tragically in a home fire. And after that death, several of us got together and decided that, one, we needed to make sure all families with children with autism were prepared. And when we did our research, we found that families said, that's the last thing on our mind, we're not even thinking about it. And so we created a very easy to use website and video. And I am making a pitch to ABA providers who are in these families' homes to use the checklist with families to help them. So I have invited a fellow BCBA, Kristen Uhara. Hi, Kristen.
Hello, Kelly. Thank you.
I've invited you to the dialogue because you actually took this checklist to heart and reached out to me with a few things. Will you share your story a little bit?
Sure. So I have been at BCBA for a little over a year and a half now. I started recently with a new company called Achievements ABA. And one of the things that I did with one of the first clients that I received was I did a home safety check. We were receiving some mixed information about whether or not the home was, completely up to snuff and a safe place to do therapy. So I conducted a home safety check. The family failed the home safety check because they did not have a fire extinguisher, which feels and sounds like such a silly thing to say. However, our clients are all entitled and they have the right to safe and effective treatment. And we can't provide that if the home environment isn't safe to do so. So I kind of had to make it my mission to get them either a way to find a fire extinguisher, buy a fire extinguisher, some way to obtain one so that not only was the environment safe in general, but we wanted to be able to continue to provide services for this client because we have to put services on hold if we can't, if they don't pass the home safety check. So that's kind of how the whole thing started.
Is the home safety check something your agency has and requires?
I don't believe they're required, but I definitely have been doing them, especially since this happened, just because you want to make sure that everything's safe and good to go in case of an emergency. We're responsible for a lot of different people while we're in people's homes. So
Fantastic.
Do that check and be thorough.
So you and I were chatting earlier and you talked about it fits in line with us as ABA providers because our job is environmental analysis and manipulation, right? And so having a safe home is part of that. Let's talk about how you actually went above and beyond. So I wanted to highlight you. They didn't have a fire extinguisher. They couldn't afford a fire extinguisher. So what'd you do next?
The first thing I did was reach out to the local fire department. They let me know that they did not provide fire extinguishers. They provide smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, but they do not provide fire extinguishers. So that was a bit of a dead end. I reached out to September 26 project. You guys pointed me to the Red Cross. On the Red Cross website, it does mention that they provide fire extinguishers.
It does.
It does. I called their local Red Cross. By the way, this client lives about 6 hours from where I live. So I could not go myself to check things out and try to get one. But after I spoke to somebody at the Red Cross, they said, I don't think we have any. I will look around and get back to you. 2 days later, they had found some.
Right.
I realized that Red Cross, between the drive there and the drive back, was over a 3-hour trip for that family. And I didn't want them to have to do that. At that point, I just had to kind of say, I think we need to consider the fire extinguisher, as unrelated as it may sound, we need to consider it essential material for session in order to be able to conduct session. And so I was able to, I did purchase it out of pocket, but I let my boss know, our director of operations, his name is Brian at Achievements. He's really supportive. He agreed, yes, these are appropriate session materials, and the company didn't end up reimbursing me for it. So that was really awesome that we all just kind of came together and said, it's a fire extinguisher. It sounds unrelated, but at the same time, we really can't do session without it, because without it, they can't pass the home safety check.
I mean, that just warmed my heart that you went out of your way, your company went out of your way. Now I can hear Maysoon in the back of my mind. Maysoon, the surviving sister, will say, Kelly, don't focus on the fire extinguishers because we took too much time playing with ours and trying to figure it out and not getting it right. I've heard her say that over and over again. And I totally get it. But what is important are the main steps on the checklist. And so I'm actually going to share my screen. And if you'll indulge me, and we are going to talk through the project. So let me pull up September 26th. Can you see this on my screen?
I can.
Okay, so for ABA providers, and what Kristen did so beautifully is if you go through this website, we have a fire safety checklist, which we'll look at. We have a natural disaster checklist, and we also have a very comprehensive wandering and elopement and water safety prevention checklist. And so if I were to pull, if you as an ABA provider sit down with a family member, right? You could do it on a phone and pull it up. And it sounds like this was part of what you did is, one, do they have a working fire alarm, right? Working smoke alarm. The local fire department will provide it. Maysoon and I also did some digging, and what we realized is you should replace your fire alarm every 10 years. I didn't know that.
I did not. So we've moved so many times. I have no idea. I can't say. I mean, I'm going to start to now because we're bringing all this to light, but I can't tell you the last time we moved into a new home and checked the fire extinguishers.
Right. And so that's the first line of defense. And if you're working with a family, do you have a carbon monoxide detector on every floor? And the fire department will provide that. Now, the fire extinguisher, the American Red Cross says on their website they'll do it. What I've since learned, because I went investigating after you reached out, was during COVID, they stopped the program because they weren't going in homes and they didn't stock up on fire extinguishers. And now they're starting to do that again. So you calling them and them searching and finding it was huge. And so it's your tenacity that really helped shed a light. When I talked to the National Red Cross, they were saying like, yeah, we need to get back on this. And so ABA providers can ask around and see if Red Crosses can talk to other Red Crosses.
Yes.
And then the having to exit out of the home, 2 exits. If you have a second floor bedroom and you can't get out, what is going to be your second exit? And so I always share the story where my best friend's son, who's 22 and severely impacted with autism's bedroom's on the second floor. And we actually have practiced a rope ladder hanging from a tree that's in their house, in their bedroom. And she has a spare mattress in her garage so that neighbors know to pull it out under the window. And as he's coming down, if he has to jump or even be pushed out that window, there's this big, thick old mattress there that will help protect that fall. And so you've got to have that second exit. And then you and I were talking earlier, Kristen, about closing the door. Like if families know, even if they're not sleeping with the doors closed, if there's a fire, close all those doors because it's going to slow the spread. And then the other thing to think about is there needs to be a meeting spot. And they also say designate a family member to be responsible for the child with autism and practice that child going to the meeting spot and waiting for help. So if other families haven't arrived, if you go on the internet, you'll see stories about children with autism who got out safely but kept running and then they couldn't find them. So the needs to practice the meeting spot in waiting for someone to come help and designating neighbors to help support those meeting at the meeting spot.
Yes, absolutely. And you need to be specific. And I think you said it so well. The only thing you can truly control is your preparation. You need to practice your plan, and it's going to feel silly when you practice it, but it won't feel silly if it ever comes time to actually execute. So yes. I found the resource for wandering. Actually, I worked with a girl, I think it was 2 years ago. She had wandered far from home, ended up in a swamp. And I just, as soon as I saw that resource, I said, oh my goodness, that is perfect for that family to have in case of an emergency, in case it were to ever happen again. But yeah, you can only control your preparation for these things.
For sure. And so for every one of these three categories, if you sit down with your family member, you can walk through the Easy Teas website. We have links on to find them. And then if you want a paper tool, there are paper tools. Here's a way to alert first responders. The first responders want to know where the children with autism live. They want to know where their bedrooms are. We even have a wandering tracking tool.
Yes.
And if you click on the wandering prevention checklist, it has all kinds of tools you can use, including a list of GPS devices, a tool to alert first responders, a phone tree to track. I had a young boy who used to wander down his road, and we set up a phone tree and a group text so that parent could text the group and say he's out of the house, and then and he almost always went to these two places, different group neighbors on the text could say, I see him, I've got him, or someone say, I saw him, but he went this way. And so it's in the old days, it was like a phone tree, but nowadays, it's like a group text. And then finally, with all of these is ABA providers, we can walk through these with our families. And one of the number one leading causes of death in autism is drowning, right? And so making sure water features, our families know where they are, children know how to swim, and access to water features are closed up. So I'm so excited to meet a fellow ABA person who's like, yes, we need to help our families be prepared, and we can use these and include them as part of requirement of our work.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be a scary or nerve-wracking thing either. It's important to include the kids in your plans. Ask them, where do you think the meeting place should be? What would you do if you were in your room and the door was closed and the doorknob was hot? What does that mean? What does that tell you? You really need to take a teaching approach to it and make it, an activity rather than, telling a scary story about if the house goes on fire, what should you do? Break it down into small teaching steps. Use a task analysis. Use picture cards. Use whatever it is you need to do to cater to that, child's learning style, or however it is they best receive information, because it is so important. And I'll say it again, you don't know that it's going to be a deficit until it comes time to execute the plan. So you really want to get ahead of it and prepare. Antecedent manipulations are important in what we do as well. So you really want to take that approach to learning for fire safety.
You said it perfectly. Kristen, I celebrate you and your company. Thank you for being a part of the September 26 project. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be a part of it.